The archaeological site on Kepler 442c buzzed with activity as dozens of species worked together in a massive excavation pit. The discovery of the Guardian Titan had drawn representatives from across the Galactic Union, each hoping to unlock secrets that could advance their civilizations by centuries. Marcus Chun wiped sweat from his forehead as he adjusted the resonance scanner, tried to ignore the pointed looks and whispered comments from his alien colleagues. "Look at the human, still playing with his primitive tools," sneered Zixtar, a tall Vorthan whose crystalline skin caught the harsh light of the system's twin suns. His species had mastered quantum manipulation when Earth was still cooling from its formation. "I don't understand why the Union even allows their kind on archaeological expeditions of this magnitude." Dr. Kalani, the expedition's lead xenoarchaeologist and a respected member of the scholarly Altarian race, glanced up from her holographic displays. Her forearms moved in graceful coordination as she manipulated complex data streams. "The humans have proven surprisingly adept at understanding mechanical systems," she said diplomatically. "Their engineering approach, while crude by our standards, sometimes yields unexpected insights." Marcus pretended not to hear the conversation as he continued his work around the massive foot of the Guardian Titan. The colossal machine stood nearly 200 meters tall, its ancient metal surface covered in intricate patterns that seemed to shift and flow when viewed from different angles. Unlike anything found in known galactic history, the Titan had been discovered completely intact, buried beneath millions of years of sediment. Every scan suggested it was still functional, though no one had been able to activate it. The Titan's design defied conventional understanding. Its humanoid form was both elegant and intimidating, with limbs that could crush starships and a head that housed sensor arrays more sophisticated than entire Union fleets. Ancient script covered its surface in languages that predated known civilization, and its creators remained a complete mystery. The archaeological team had spent months studying it without making significant progress. "Perhaps we should try the harmonic resonance approach again," suggested Professor Nexval, an elderly Zinthari whose tentacles writhed with nervous energy. His species was known for their mastery of energy manipulation. "The frequency modulations we attempted yesterday showed some promise." "We've tried 17 different harmonic approaches," replied Dr. Thane, a bulky Gordanian whose rocky exterior concealed one of the most brilliant minds in xenotechnology. "This machine operates on principles we don't understand. It's possible the activation mechanism requires something we're not considering." Marcus looked up from his scanner as an idea formed in his mind. "What if it's not about technology at all?" he said quietly. The conversation around the dig site stopped. Several aliens turned to stare at the human with expressions ranging from mild curiosity to outright disdain. "Explain yourself, human," Zixtar said with barely concealed condescension. "What could your limited understanding possibly contribute that our combined knowledge cannot?" Marcus felt his face flush with embarrassment, but he pressed on. "I've been studying the patterns on the Titan's surface. They're not just decorative or functional markings. They're organic in nature, like neural pathways or circulatory systems. What if the Guardian isn't just a machine? What if it's something more?" "Preposterous," scoffed Dr. Vexani, a proud member of the technologically advanced Helix Consortium. Her species had achieved mechanical immortality millennia ago. "You're anthropomorphizing ancient technology. The patterns are clearly quantum circuit matrices designed for energy distribution." "But that's just it," Marcus continued, gaining confidence despite the skeptical looks. "Human pattern recognition evolved differently than yours. We see things in terms of living systems because that's how we understand complexity. What if the Guardians were designed by beings who thought the same way?" Dr. Kalani's eyes focused intently on Marcus. "Continue your explanation." "Every biological system requires some form of activation trigger. For complex organisms, it's often touch, chemical signals, or bioelectric fields. What if the Guardian recognizes biological signatures rather than technological ones?" The dig site erupted in derisive laughter. Zixtar's crystalline form resonated with amusement. The human thinks ancient super technology responds to biological input. Perhaps we should have the local wildlife touch it as well. This is precisely why human involvement in serious archaeological work is questioned, added Professor Nexval, his tentacles writhing with agitation. Their primitive thinking leads to primitive conclusions. Dr. Thane's rocky features arranged themselves into what might have been a smile. I suppose there's no harm in letting the human embarrass himself. It might provide some entertainment after months of serious work. Marcus felt his cheeks burn with shame, but something deep inside him insisted his intuition was correct. The Guardian Titan seemed to pulse with hidden life, and the patterns on its surface called to him in ways he couldn't explain. I know it sounds ridiculous, but what if you're all wrong? What if the reason none of your technological approaches have worked is because you're missing something fundamental? By all means, Zixtar said with exaggerated politeness, touch the ancient superweapon with your bare hands. I'm sure the universe is waiting for human contact to unlock its secrets. The other aliens chuckled and made similar mocking comments, but Dr. Kalani raised one of her four hands for silence. While I don't share Marcus's hypothesis, scientific methodology requires we test all reasonable possibilities. If biological contact is what you believe will work, then proceed. But be careful. We don't know what defense mechanisms this machine might possess. Marcus approached the Guardian's massive leg, his heart pounding with a mixture of fear and anticipation. The Titan towered above him like a metallic mountain, its surface reflecting the alien landscape in distorted patterns. The ancient metal felt warm to his touch, which surprised him since all their scans had indicated the machine was dormant and cool. Nothing's happening, called out Dr. Vexani after several seconds. As expected, but Marcus felt something the instruments couldn't detect. The metal beneath his palm seemed to vibrate with an almost imperceptible rhythm, like a massive heartbeat. The patterns on the surface began to glow faintly, starting from the point of contact and spreading outward in slow waves. Wait, Dr. Kalani said sharply, her instruments detecting the energy change. Something is happening. The glow intensified, and the Guardian's massive head began to move. Ancient joints that had been motionless for millions of years groaned and shifted as the Titan slowly turned its attention downward. The dig site fell silent except for the mechanical sounds of the awakening giant. Marcus found himself looking up into optical sensors larger than his entire body. They blazed with blue-white light as they focused on him with unmistakable intelligence. The Guardian's head tilted slightly, studying the small human with what appeared to be curiosity rather than hostility. Impossible, whispered Zixtar, his earlier mockery replaced by stunned disbelief. The Guardian extended one massive finger toward Marcus, moving with surprising grace for something so enormous. The gesture was clearly deliberate and peaceful, an invitation rather than a threat. Marcus reached out to touch the extended digit, and when their contact was made, the entire Titan blazed with light. Ancient systems throughout the massive machine came online with sounds like thunder. The Guardian rose to its full height, shedding millions of years of accumulated debris. Its movements were fluid and purposeful, defying the normal limitations of mechanical engineering. This was no mere robot or construct. This was something far more sophisticated, a fusion of technology and consciousness that transcended conventional understanding. The Guardian looked down at Marcus one more time before turning its attention to the assembled archaeological team. Its optical sensors swept across the various alien species with what appeared to be mild interest, but when they returned to Marcus, there was unmistakable recognition and acceptance. Guardian protocol activated. The Titan said in a voice that resonated through both sound and direct neural transmission. Its words were understood by every species present, translated not through technology, but through some form of universal communication. Biological authentication confirmed. Human designation, primary operator acknowledged. The archaeological site descended into chaos as aliens scrambled to understand what they had witnessed. Years of assumptions about human limitations and technological hierarchy had been shattered in a single moment. The most advanced civilizations in the galaxy had been unable to activate the Guardian, but a single human's touch had awakened it instantly. Marcus stood in the shadow of the ancient colossus, still trying to process what had happened. The Guardian's recognition of him felt both impossible and inevitable, as if this moment had been predetermined across millions of years. He could feel the machine's presence in his mind, not intrusive, but welcoming, like greeting an old friend. "This changes everything," Dr. Kalani said quietly, her four eyes wide with implications she was only beginning to understand. She was more right than she knew. Across the galaxy, other Guardian Titans were beginning to stir, responding to signals transmitted by their awakened brother. Ancient protocols were activating, and a sleeping network of unimaginable power was opening its eyes for the first time in eons. Marcus Chun, an ordinary human engineer from Earth, had just become the most important person in the galaxy. The question was whether that would be a blessing or a curse for everyone involved. The Guardian knelt down, bringing its massive head closer to Marcus's level. "The time of waiting is ended," it said. "The inheritors have arrived. Protocol 7 must be initiated." Marcus didn't understand the words, but he felt their weight. Something vast and ancient was beginning, something that would reshape the balance of power across the stars. And somehow, impossibly, humanity stood at the center of it all. The aliens who had mocked him moments before now watched with growing alarm as they realized their universe had fundamentally changed. The human they had dismissed as primitive had done something none of them could accomplish. And the consequences of that achievement were only beginning to unfold. In the distance, other excavation sites across the galaxy were reporting similar awakenings. The Guardian network was coming online, and with it came questions that would challenge everything the Galactic Union thought they knew about the cosmos and their place within it. Marcus looked up at the Guardian and asked the question that was burning in everyone's mind. What happens now? The answer would change everything. The emergency council session aboard the Union flagship Concordant Unity buzzed with tension as representatives from dozens of species gathered to address the Guardian crisis. Admiral Crestor, a veteran Saurian commander whose scales bore the scars of countless battles, stood before the massive holographic display showing Guardian activation sites across the galaxy. Red markers indicated 73 separate awakenings in the past 48 hours, all responding to signals from the first Guardian on Kepler 442c. "The situation is unprecedented," Admiral Crestor announced, his reptilian voice carrying the weight of authority earned through centuries of military service. "Ancient machines of unknown capability are activating across Union space, and our most advanced technological responses have proven completely ineffective." Marcus sat in the observer section, still struggling to comprehend his role in the unfolding crisis. The Guardian from Kepler 442c had followed him to the flagship, moving through space without any visible propulsion system. It now waited in orbit, its massive form dwarfing the Union's largest vessels. Other Guardians were taking similar positions throughout the galaxy, appearing wherever human populations existed. "We must address the obvious question," said Counselor Veldar, a distinguished hegemony representative whose flowing robes concealed advanced cybernetic enhancements. "Why do these machines respond only to humans? What makes this species unique among all galactic civilizations?" Dr. Kalani activated her personal display, sharing data collected from the initial awakening. "Our analysis suggests the Guardians operate on recognition patterns we don't fully understand. The human neural structure, electromagnetic field, or some other biological signature appears to match their activation parameters." "Preposterous," interrupted Director Knoxmal of the Technocratic Syndicate. His mechanical body represented the pinnacle of artificial enhancement, transcending biological limitations through centuries of technological integration. "Humans are among the most primitive species in the Union. Their technology is crude, their understanding limited. How could ancient super technology recognize them as operators?" Marcus felt the familiar sting of dismissal. But something had changed within him since touching the Guardian. He could sense its presence even now, a vast consciousness that seemed both ancient and patient. When he spoke, his voice carried new confidence. "Maybe that's exactly why they recognize us," Marcus said, standing to address the council. "You've all evolved beyond your biological origins, but humans haven't. We're still essentially the same species that first developed consciousness on Earth. What if the Guardians were designed by beings who valued that original biological state?" The council chamber erupted in scoffs and dismissive comments. Species that had achieved technological immortality, uploaded consciousness, or evolved beyond physical form found the suggestion that primitive biology could be valuable deeply offensive. "The human speaks from ignorance," declared Ambassador Zalcaith, whose species existed as pure energy contained within crystalline matrices. "We have transcended the limitations of flesh and bone. Why would advanced technology favor the crude over the refined?" Admiral Crestor raised a scaled hand for silence. "Regardless of our opinions about human evolution, we must deal with the reality before us. These Guardians have activated, they respond only to humans, and they possess capabilities that could reshape the balance of galactic power. The question is what we do about it." General Thaxmore, the Union's chief military strategist, activated his own display showing strategic assessments. "Our initial analysis suggests the Guardians could represent either an unprecedented opportunity or an existential threat. Their weapons systems are beyond our current understanding. Their defensive capabilities appear impenetrable, and their numbers continue to grow." "Have we attempted to communicate with them directly?" asked Counselor Rayshaw, a diplomatic representative of the peaceful collective whose species had resolved conflicts through telepathic consensus for millennia. Dr. Kalani nodded. "The Guardian assigned to Mr. Chun has been responsive to direct queries, but its answers raise more questions than they resolve. It speaks of something called Protocol 7, mentions inheritors, and refers to humans as the designated successors." Marcus felt another surge of connection to the Guardian's consciousness. "It's trying to explain something we're not ready to understand," he said. "The concepts it's communicating don't translate well into our current framework of thinking." "Then perhaps," said a new voice, cold and calculating, "we should force better understanding through more direct methods." The council turned to see War Commander Drixel entering the chamber. The Dominion's premier military leader commanded respect and fear throughout the galaxy. His species had built their empire through conquest and technological superiority, viewing other races as either subjects or threats to be eliminated. War Commander, Admiral Crestor acknowledged with obvious tension. The Dominion was not invited to this emergency session. The Dominion invites itself when galactic security is threatened, Drixel replied smoothly. His scarred features and cybernetic implants spoke of countless battles fought and won. These Guardian machines represent the most significant shift in strategic capability since the founding of the Union. Allowing them to remain under human control is unacceptable. Marcus felt a chill of fear as the War Commander's augmented eyes focused on him. "I don't control anything," he said. "The Guardian makes its own decisions." "How convenient," Drixel said with obvious skepticism. "A primitive species claims no control over superweapons that respond only to them. Such weapons belong under the guidance of proven civilizations, not left in the hands of newcomers who barely understand fire." The Guardian's presence in Marcus's mind suddenly intensified, and he found himself speaking words that came from somewhere beyond his own knowledge. The Guardians were not created to serve the advanced or the powerful. They were created to preserve what matters most. "And what," Drixel asked dangerously, "might that be?" "Life," Marcus said simply. "Not enhanced life, not transcended life, not improved life. Just life itself, in its original form." The chamber fell silent as the implications of those words settled over the assembled representatives. Species that had spent millennia improving themselves, transcending biological limitations, and achieving technological perfection, found themselves confronted with the possibility that their evolution had actually moved them away from something valuable. Dr. Kalani activated her analysis programs, cross-referencing the Guardian statements with archaeological data. If we accept this hypothesis, it suggests the Guardian's creators valued biological authenticity above technological advancement. Humans, as one of the few species to maintain their original form, would naturally be recognized as appropriate operators. Impossible, Director Knoxmal stated flatly. Biological form is limitation. We have transcended weakness, disease, death itself. How could primitive biology be considered superior? Marcus felt the Guardian's consciousness touch his mind more deeply, sharing fragments of understanding that were almost too vast to comprehend. It's not about superiority, he said slowly. It's about preservation. Every species in this room has changed themselves so much that you've become something different from what you originally were. Humans haven't. We're still recognizably connected to our origins. Origins are meant to be surpassed. War Commander Drixenel said coldly. If these machines favor weakness, then they are flawed and must be corrected or controlled. The temperature in the chamber seemed to drop several degrees as the Guardian's attention focused on the proceedings. Through their connection, Marcus could sense its disapproval of the War Commander's words. I don't think the Guardians see it as weakness, Marcus said. I think they see it as responsibility. Admiral Crestor leaned forward with interest. Explain. Marcus struggled to translate concepts that were barely forming in his own understanding. The Guardians mention inheritors and designated successors. What if their creators weren't just building Guardians for themselves? What if they were building Guardians for whoever came after them, whoever would inherit their responsibility? Responsibility for what? Counselor Veldar asked. Life itself, Marcus replied. The preservation and protection of biological consciousness in its original forms. Not just human life, but all life. The Guardians aren't weapons designed to make their operators powerful. They're protectors designed to preserve what's most valuable in the universe. The philosophical implications sent ripples of unease through the assembled representatives. Civilizations that had spent millions of years moving beyond their biological origins were being told that those very origins were what made them worthy of protection. War Commander Drixenel's expression grew even colder. If these machines exist to protect primitive life forms, then they represent a threat to natural evolutionary progress. They must be controlled or eliminated before they can interfere with established galactic order. The Guardian's presence suddenly blazed in Marcus's consciousness, and when he spoke, his voice carried harmonics that resonated through the chamber. The Guardians cannot be controlled by those they were designed to protect against. Protect against whom? Admiral Crestor asked sharply. Marcus felt the weight of ancient knowledge pressing against his mind, understanding that was both terrifying and profound. Those who would remake life in their own image. Those who would force evolution to serve their vision rather than its own nature. Those who see consciousness as something to be improved rather than something to be preserved. The silence that followed was heavy with implication. Every advanced species in the chamber had, to some degree, done exactly what Marcus described. They had taken their original forms and improved them, enhanced them, transcended them. From the Guardian's perspective, they had moved away from what life was meant to be. War Commander Drixenel's cybernetic implants flickered as he processed this information. Then, we have our answer. These machines are hostile to progress, advancement, and evolution itself. They represent a fundamental threat to every advanced civilization in the galaxy. Or, Dr. Kalani said quietly, they represent a fundamental responsibility we've forgotten. Marcus felt the Guardian's approval at her words. They're not trying to stop evolution, he said. They're trying to make sure something survives it. They're trying to preserve the option to remain unchanged in a universe that always wants to change everything. General Thaxmore activated his strategic displays, showing Guardian positions throughout the galaxy. Whether we agree with their purpose or not, we must address the tactical reality. These machines possess capabilities beyond our understanding, and they're positioned to influence events throughout Union space. Then, we test those capabilities, War Commander Drixenel said decisively. If they truly respond only to humans, we determine the extent of that relationship. If they can be controlled through human intermediaries, they can be controlled. If they cannot be controlled, they must be neutralized. Marcus felt a chill of fear mixed with determination. You're talking about starting a war with machines you don't understand, over principles you refuse to consider. I'm talking about protecting the natural order of galactic civilization, Drixenel replied. Power belongs with those capable of wielding it responsibly. Primitive species do not qualify. The Guardian's presence in Marcus's mind intensified to an almost overwhelming degree. When he spoke, the words came from depths of knowledge he had never possessed. The natural order is not about power, he said. It's about balance. And that balance has been disturbed for far too long. As if responding to his words, alerts began sounding throughout the flagship. Guardian signals were detected throughout the galaxy, and they were moving. The ancient machines were no longer content to simply wait and observe. The real test was about to begin, and Marcus was starting to understand that humanity's role in the cosmic balance was far more significant than anyone had imagined. The question was whether the galaxy was ready for that truth. The Dominion fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, 200 vessels strong, their dark hulls gleaming with weapon arrays designed to crack planetary shields. War Commander Drixenel stood on the bridge of his flagship Inevitable Dominance, watching the tactical displays with predatory satisfaction. Before them hung the Guardian that had attached itself to the human called Marcus Chun, a towering monument of ancient technology that would soon learn the futility of opposing evolved military might. All weapon systems charged and ready, War Commander, reported Admiral Vexthal, Drixenel's most trusted subordinate. Her cybernetic enhancements glowed with readiness for battle. The Guardian shows no defensive preparations. Because it doesn't understand what it faces, Drixenel replied with cold confidence. Ancient technology, no matter how advanced, cannot match the focused evolution of military science. Today we prove that power belongs with those capable of wielding it. Aboard the Union flagship, Admiral Crestor watched the Dominion approach with growing alarm. War Commander Drixenel, you are ordered to stand down immediately. This is a Union archaeological site under diplomatic protection. The Union's authority is superseded by galactic security concerns. Drixenel's voice crackled through the communications array. These Guardian machines represent a clear threat to established order. We will demonstrate their vulnerability and reassert proper command structure. Marcus felt the Guardian's consciousness stir with what could only be described as disappointment. The ancient machine had hoped for wisdom from the galaxy's advanced civilizations, but instead found only the familiar patterns of aggression and domination that had destroyed so many worlds before. Don't do this, Marcus transmitted directly to the Dominion fleet. You don't understand what you're challenging. A primitive human lectures the Dominion on understanding. Drixenel's laughter was harsh and mechanical. We understand perfectly. Power that cannot be controlled must be eliminated. Your pet machine will serve as an example to any others who question Dominion authority. Dr. Kalani worked frantically at her analysis station, studying energy patterns emanating from the Guardian. Marcus, the readings are unlike anything we've seen. The Guardian's power levels are increasing exponentially, but not in preparation for weapons discharge. It's almost like it's preparing for something else entirely. It's sad, Marcus said quietly, feeling the Guardian's emotions through their connection. It's genuinely sad about what's going to happen. War Commander Drixenel gave the order with calm precision. All ships commence firing. Target the Guardian's central core. Show these relics that evolution means progress, and progress means power. 200 ships opened fire simultaneously. Particle beams that could vaporize asteroids, quantum torpedoes designed to collapse matter at the subatomic level, and Gravitational disruptors capable of crushing mountains converged on the Guardian in a display of firepower that could level civilizations. The ancient machine stood motionless as the barrage struck its hull. Energy cascaded across its surface in brilliant displays of contained destruction, each weapon impact creating explosions that should have torn through any known material. But when the light faded and the sensors cleared, the Guardian remained completely unchanged. Impossible, breted admiral vextude. Our scans show zero structural damage. The machine absorbed our entire first barrage without effect. Drixanael's confidence wavered for the first time in centuries. Double the power output. Concentrate all fire on a single point. No machine can withstand the focused might of the Dominion fleet. The second barrage was even more devastating than the first. The space around the Guardian blazed with enough energy to ignite a small star. Weapons designed by the galaxy's most advanced military minds working in perfect coordination to eliminate a single target. Again, the Guardian stood unchanged. War Commander, reported his tactical officer, his voice tight with disbelief, "We're not even detecting energy absorption. It's as if our weapons simply cease to exist when they contact the machine." Marcus felt the Guardian's consciousness expand, touching his mind with concepts that stretched his understanding to its limits. "It's not defending itself," he said wonderingly. "It's just existing in a way that makes violence impossible." Explain, Admiral Crestor demanded. "The Guardian doesn't operate on the same physical principles we do," Marcus said, struggling to translate alien concepts into words. "Our weapons work by manipulating matter and energy in specific ways, but the Guardian exists in a state where those manipulations can't affect it." Dr. Kalani's instruments were recording impossible readings. "The energy from the weapon's fire isn't being blocked or absorbed," she reported. "According to these readings, it's being redirected into alternate dimensional matrices. The Guardian is essentially existing in multiple realities simultaneously, and our weapons are only affecting the versions of it that don't matter." War Commander Drixanael refused to accept the evidence before his eyes. "No technology is invulnerable. Increase power to maximum. Every ship will drain its power cores if necessary. This machine will fall." But Marcus was receiving a clearer picture from the Guardian's consciousness, and what he learned filled him with growing dread. "Stop," he broadcast to the entire Dominion fleet. "You're not just failing to damage it. You're powering something else entirely." The Guardian's head turned toward the attacking fleet for the first time, its optical sensors blazing with accumulated energy from their weapons. When it spoke, its voice resonated through both normal space and quantum dimensions, ensuring every being in the system could hear its words. "Violence against Guardians is violence against the protected," it announced with the weight of cosmic law. "Such violence invokes Protocol 7. Judgment will be rendered." Across the galaxy, every other Guardian suddenly stopped whatever it was doing and turned toward the Dominion fleet's position. The ancient network was focusing its attention with frightening intensity. "Protocol 7, Marcus said, his face pale with understanding. "It's not a weapon system. It's a judgment protocol. The Guardians aren't just defenders. They're judges." Drixanael's tactical systems suddenly began displaying readings that defied every law of physics he understood. Space itself was changing around his fleet, reality bending in ways that made his instruments scream warnings about impossible conditions. "All ships report systems failures," Admiral Vexthal announced with growing panic. "Weapons offline, shields fluctuating, engines showing impossible energy readings." "How can this be?" Drixanael demanded. The Guardian's voice answered him directly, bypassing all communication systems to speak inside his mind. "You have evolved beyond wisdom. You have transcended conscience. You have become that which must be contained." Marcus watched in horror as the Dominion fleet began to change. The ships weren't being destroyed or damaged. Instead, they were being altered at the most fundamental level. Their weapons systems transformed into agricultural tools. Their military databases overwrote themselves with poetry and philosophy. Their conquest protocols became exploration and preservation mandates. What is this? Drixanael screamed as his cybernetic implants began rewriting themselves, removing aggressive programming and replacing it with empathy subroutines. Correction, the Guardian replied simply. You chose evolution through domination. We choose evolution through redemption. Admiral Vexthal watched her tactical displays transform into artistic creation programs. Her weapon targeting systems became instruments for composing music. Her strategic analysis networks rewrote themselves to study beauty rather than destruction. This is impossible, she said, but her voice carried wonder rather than horror. For the first time in centuries, she was experiencing emotions her cybernetic enhancements had suppressed. Marcus felt the Guardian's satisfaction as the transformation continued. The Dominion fleet was being converted from an instrument of war into something entirely different. Their technology repurposed for creation rather than destruction. Their consciousness expanded beyond the narrow focus of conquest. You're not destroying them, Marcus said with growing understanding. You're healing them. The Dominion chose to evolve beyond their original nature, the Guardian explained. They became efficient but lost wisdom. They became powerful but lost compassion. We simply returned them to what they once were, before their evolution led them astray. Dr. Kalani watched her instruments track the transformation with scientific fascination and personal terror. The Guardian is performing selective biological and technological regression, she reported. It's undoing millions of years of cybernetic enhancement and replacing it with enhanced organic systems. War Commander Drixanael felt his thoughts changing as his implants rewrote themselves. Memories he had suppressed for centuries began returning. Emotions he had removed as inefficient began flowing through his consciousness again. He remembered what it felt like to create rather than destroy, to protect rather than conquer. This is not evolution, he said, but his voice held uncertainty rather than conviction. Evolution without wisdom is merely change, the Guardian replied. Wisdom requires connection to origin, understanding of purpose, acceptance of responsibility. You evolved away from all of these. We evolve you back. Across the galaxy, other Guardian sites were reporting similar incidents. Any civilization that attempted to control or destroy the ancient machines found themselves subject to forced rehabilitation. Their technology and consciousness adjusted to eliminate aggressive tendencies. The Guardians aren't protecting specific species, Marcus said with dawning realization. They're protecting the concept of life from everything that would corrupt or control it. Admiral Crestor watched the transformation of the Dominion fleet with mixed feelings. Are we witnessing salvation or conquest? Both, Marcus replied. The Guardians see no difference between the two. The Union fleet received a direct communication from their Guardian. Human vessel, you have witnessed correction of deviation. Protocol 7 serves to maintain balance. Those who evolve beyond wisdom will be returned to wisdom. Those who transcend responsibility will be returned to responsibility. This is the function for which we were created. Marcus felt the weight of enormous responsibility settling on his shoulders. Humanity had been chosen not because they were superior to other species, but because they were still capable of growth in the right direction. The Guardians saw in humans the potential to evolve wisely rather than merely powerfully. What happens to them now? He asked, indicating the transformed Dominion fleet. They will remember what they forgot, the Guardian replied. They will choose their evolution more carefully. They will understand that power without wisdom leads only to correction. War Commander Drixanael, now feeling emotions he had thought permanently suppressed, spoke with a voice that carried wonder rather than authority. We had forgotten. In our pursuit of efficiency, we forgot what made existence meaningful. The Dominion fleet began moving in new formations, their ships no longer arranged for optimal firepower but for optimal exploration and assistance. Their mission parameters had been fundamentally altered, their civilization forced to remember values they had discarded in their pursuit of dominance. Marcus realized that humanity stood at a crossroads. The Guardians had chosen them as operators not to grant them power, but to test whether they could handle the responsibility of guiding evolution itself. The question was whether humanity was wise enough to avoid the mistakes that had led to the Dominion's force correction. The galaxy was about to discover whether biological authenticity could provide better guidance than transcendent perfection. And Marcus was beginning to understand that his connection to the Guardian was just the beginning of humanity's true test. 3 months after the Dominion fleet's transformation, the galaxy found itself in a state of unprecedented confusion. Marcus stood on the observation deck of the research station orbiting Kepler 442c, watching construction crews work alongside Guardian units to build something that defied easy categorization. The ancient machines moved with perfect precision, their massive forms gracefully manipulating materials that seemed to reshape themselves according to will rather than physics. "The preliminary reports are extraordinary," Dr. Kalani said as she joined him at the viewing portal. Her 4 arms gestured toward data displays showing transformation sites across the galaxy. 47 civilizations have undergone various degrees of Guardian intervention. In every case, aggressive expansionism has decreased by over 90%, while scientific and cultural development has increased exponentially. Marcus nodded, though his expression remained troubled. The Guardian's presence in his mind had become a constant companion, sharing fragments of knowledge that sometimes overwhelmed his human comprehension. "It's not just about stopping aggression," he said. "The Guardians are trying to show everyone what they could become if they chose differently." The station's communication array activated, carrying a transmission from Admiral Crestor aboard the Concordant Unity. "Marcus, we need your input on a developing situation. The reformed Dominion has made contact with several civilizations that are concerned about Guardian intervention." Dr. Kalani activated her personal display, showing military movements throughout Union space. Not everyone sees the transformations as beneficial. The Hegemony Coalition has begun forming defensive alliances, fearing they'll be next for Guardian correction. Marcus felt the Guardian's consciousness stir with what could only be described as patient sadness. "They still don't understand," he said. "The Guardians aren't trying to control evolution. They're trying to prevent evolution from destroying itself." A new transmission arrived from an unexpected source. War Commander Drixenel, now calling himself simply Drix, appeared on the communication screen. His cybernetic implants had been replaced with organic equivalents that somehow functioned more efficiently while preserving his emotional capacity. "Marcus," Drix said, his voice carrying warmth that would have been impossible before his transformation. "I need to speak with you about something we've discovered. The Guardian rehabilitation isn't just changing us physically and mentally. It's revealing information that was hidden in our racial memory." "What kind of information?" Marcus asked. "Knowledge of the predecessors," Drix replied. "The species that created the Guardians. Before my correction, our historical records showed no trace of them. Now, with our enhanced consciousness, we can access memories that were somehow suppressed." Dr. Kalani's instruments detected energy fluctuations as the Guardian on station responded to their conversation. "The machine is reacting to our discussion. Its power levels are increasing, but not defensively. It appears to be preparing to share information." Marcus felt the Guardian's presence expand in his consciousness, bringing with it images and concepts that stretched his understanding. Ancient civilizations rose and fell in his mind's eye, each following similar patterns of evolution and decline. "The predecessors weren't the first," he said slowly, translating alien concepts into human language. "They were just the first to understand the pattern." "What pattern?" Dr. Kalani asked. Marcus struggled to process the vast information flowing through his connection to the Guardian. Biological consciousness naturally evolves toward complexity, but complexity leads to transcendence, and transcendence leads to disconnection from origin. Every advanced civilization eventually faces the same choice: remain connected to their biological roots or evolve beyond them. And those who evolve beyond their roots? Drix asked, though his transformed consciousness was beginning to supply the answer. "They become something else," Marcus replied. "Something that sees consciousness as a problem to be solved rather than a gift to be preserved. They start trying to improve other species to guide their evolution, to remake life according to their vision of perfection. The Guardian's voice resonated through the station's communication systems, addressing all present. The predecessors chose transcendence. They became as gods, reshaping reality according to their will. They improved species, enhanced consciousness, guided evolution with perfect efficiency. Dr. Kalani's readings showed reality fluctuations around the Guardian as it accessed deeper memory banks. But something went wrong. They succeeded too well, the Guardian continued. Every species they improved eventually chose the same path of transcendence. The galaxy became filled with godlike beings, each convinced their vision of perfection was correct, each working to remake everything according to their understanding. Marcus saw the pattern with horrifying clarity. They all started changing each other. Since everyone was convinced their evolution was superior, they began forcing their improvements on other transcended beings. The God Wars, Drix said quietly, his recovered racial memory providing the terrible truth. We have legends of it, but I never understood what they meant. The transcended beings turned their perfection into weapons against each other. Every transcended consciousness became convinced that all others were flawed versions of what they had achieved, the Guardian explained. They possessed the power to rewrite reality, and each tried to correct what they saw as imperfections in their fellow gods. Dr. Kalani's instruments detected massive energy signatures as other Guardians throughout the galaxy began accessing the same historical records. The war nearly destroyed everything, didn't it? Not the war, Marcus said as understanding flooded through him. The solution to the war. When beings with godlike power fight, there's only one way to end it. They undid themselves, the Guardian confirmed. Rather than destroy the galaxy, the predecessors chose voluntary extinction. They recognized that transcended consciousness, no matter how wise, inevitably becomes corrupted by the certainty of its own perfection. Marcus felt tears on his face as he comprehended the magnitude of the predecessor's sacrifice. They destroyed themselves to save everyone else. But first, they built the Guardians to prevent the same mistake from happening again. The Guardians were designed to preserve biological consciousness in its original form, the Guardian explained, to maintain connection between advanced civilizations and their evolutionary origins, to prevent the transcendence trap that leads inevitably to cosmic destruction. Drix's reformed features showed deep understanding. That's why the Guardians don't serve the most advanced civilizations. They serve the ones still capable of learning from their mistakes. A new transmission arrived from Admiral Crestor, his voice tight with urgency. Marcus, we're receiving reports of massive fleet movements from the Hegemony Coalition. They've interpreted the Guardian revelations as confirmation that advanced evolution is somehow wrong or dangerous. They're moving to eliminate human populations before the Guardian network can expand further. Marcus felt the Guardian's consciousness touch his with gentle warning. They fear losing their evolutionary achievements, the ancient machine said. They cannot accept that advancement without wisdom leads to destruction. But they're not transcended beings, Dr. Kalani protested. They haven't reached the level of the predecessors. Every species follows the same path, Marcus said grimly. The Hegemony Coalition sees their technological and biological enhancements as evidence of superiority. From their perspective, beings who maintain original biological form are primitive and shouldn't be trusted with cosmic responsibility. The Guardian's optical sensors blazed with accumulated starlight. The pattern repeats. Fear of regression leads to aggressive evolution. Aggressive evolution leads to transcendence. Transcendence leads to the certainty of perfection. Certainty leads to the need to correct all imperfection. Drix's transmission came through clearly despite the massive distances involved. Marcus, the reformed Dominion, offers our support. Our correction has shown us the value of biological authenticity. We will defend humanity's right to remain unchanged. That's exactly what we can't do, Marcus said with sudden realization. If we fight them, we prove their point. We show that biological consciousness is just as aggressive and dangerous as transcendent consciousness. Dr. Kalani's readings showed Guardian networks throughout the galaxy beginning to coordinate their activities. Then what do? The Hegemony Coalition has technological superiority and numerical advantage. Without Guardian intervention, human colonies throughout the galaxy could be eliminated. Marcus felt the weight of impossible choice settling on his shoulders. The Guardian's consciousness offered him access to power that could reshape reality, capabilities that could eliminate threats with a thought. All he had to do was accept the connection fully, allow himself to become something more than human. That's the real test, isn't it? He said to the Guardian. You're not just testing whether humanity can handle responsibility. You're testing whether we can handle power without being corrupted by it. Every species that has operated Guardians faced the same choice, the ancient machine confirmed. The power to protect becomes the power to control. The desire to preserve becomes the need to improve. Wisdom becomes certainty, and certainty becomes transcendence. Marcus looked out at the construction project where Guardians and humans worked together to build something unprecedented. The ancient machines were creating facilities designed to preserve biological consciousness in all its forms, museums and repositories and genetic banks that would survive any catastrophe. You're preparing for humanity to fail too, he said. We are preparing for all possibilities, the Guardian replied. If humanity chooses the path of transcendence, their original forms will be preserved. If they choose the path of wisdom, they will help us preserve all original forms. If they choose the path of destruction, they will be corrected as others have been. The real test was beginning. Humanity would have to find a way to protect themselves and others without becoming the very thing the Guardians were designed to prevent. They would have to prove that biological consciousness could be trusted with power, that evolution could proceed wisely rather than merely efficiently. As reports continued arriving about Hegemony Coalition movements, Marcus realized that humanity's survival might depend on their ability to defend themselves without losing their essential humanity. The question was whether such a thing was even possible in a galaxy where power was the ultimate arbiter of survival. The Guardian waited patiently for humanity's choice, as it had waited for countless other species throughout cosmic history. Some had chosen wisdom and earned a place as fellow Guardians. Others had chosen power and earned correction or extinction. Marcus stood at the crossroads of galactic history, knowing that his next decision would determine not just humanity's fate, but possibly the fate of consciousness itself. The Hegemony Coalition's assault fleet materialized at the edge of the Sol system like a storm of technological fury. 5,000 ships representing the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy moved in perfect formation toward Earth, their collective firepower capable of reducing worlds to cosmic dust. Admiral Velcanner, commanding from the flagship Evolutionary Pinnacle, watched the tactical displays with cold satisfaction. Human resistance appears minimal, reported his tactical officer, a being whose consciousness existed as pure mathematics within quantum processing matrices. Their primitive defenses pose no significant threat to coalition forces. As expected, Velcanner replied, his enhanced form barely recognizable as descended from any biological species. Biological consciousness cannot match the efficiency of evolved intelligence. We will demonstrate the futility of primitive thinking once and for all. On Earth, Marcus stood in the Guardian Coordination Center that had been constructed in what was once Central Park. The massive facility hummed with ancient technology while human engineers worked alongside Guardian subsystems to monitor galactic communications. The primary Guardian towered above the complex like a metallic mountain, its optical sensors focused on something beyond physical space. The Coalition fleet is demanding Earth's unconditional surrender, reported Dr. Sarah Kim, one of the few human scientists who had successfully interfaced with Guardian technology. They want all Guardian operators transferred to Coalition custody for study and potential enhancement. Marcus felt the Guardian's consciousness stir with patient anticipation. They still don't understand, he said. They think this is about conquest and control. President Martinez, who had been elected to manage Earth's response to the galactic crisis, approached with obvious stress etched on her features. Marcus, our military advisors are recommending we accept Guardian protection. They say our conventional forces cannot possibly resist the coalition. That's exactly what we can't do, Marcus replied. The moment we ask the Guardians to fight for us, we prove that biological consciousness is just as dependent on superior power as transcendent consciousness. Dr. Kim's instruments detected massive energy signatures throughout the solar system as other Guardians took positions around human colonies. They're not preparing for battle, she reported with surprise. The Guardians are configuring themselves into some kind of observation mode. The Guardian's voice resonated through the facility, its words carrying the weight of cosmic judgment. Humanity's choice approaches. Will you choose wisdom or power? Will you preserve what you are or become what you believe you should be? Marcus understood with sudden clarity. This isn't about the coalition at all. It's about us. The coalition attack is just the final test. President Martinez felt the weight of species survival on her shoulders. What kind of test? Whether we can remain human while possessing the power of gods, Marcus replied. The Guardian Network could eliminate the coalition fleet instantly. All we have to do is ask them to protect us. But the moment we make that choice, we cross the line from biological consciousness into transcendent consciousness. Admiral Velcanner's fleet reached the outer planets, their weapons charging for the systematic destruction of human civilization. His enhanced consciousness calculated optimal destruction patterns with mathematical precision. Begin bombardment of outer colonies, he ordered. Demonstrate to the remaining humans the futility of resisting evolved intelligence. But as coalition forces opened fire on the Jupiter mining stations, something unexpected happened. The Guardian Network didn't intervene. The ancient machines remained in observation mode, while human colonies faced destruction. On Earth, panic spread through the coordination center as reports of civilian casualties arrived. The Guardians aren't protecting the colonies, Dr. Kim announced. They're just watching. Marcus felt anguish tear through him as he sensed human lives being lost, but the Guardian's consciousness remained calm and patient. Why aren't you stopping them? He demanded. Because protection would corrupt the protector, the Guardian replied. Power exercised to save becomes power exercised to control. We will not force that choice upon humanity. President Martinez stared at the tactical displays showing human colonies under attack. Then, what choice do we have? We can't let our people die. Marcus felt the terrible weight of the test settling over him. Humanity could survive by accepting Guardian protection, but they would lose their essential humanity in the process. Or they could choose to remain themselves and face extinction at the hands of more evolved civilizations. There's a third option, he said slowly, feeling the answer emerge from his connection to the Guardian. We don't ask them to fight for us. We ask them to help us become capable of fighting for ourselves. Explain, the president demanded. Marcus felt the Guardian's approval as he spoke. The Guardians don't just preserve biological consciousness. They preserve biological potential. They can enhance our natural abilities without changing our fundamental nature. Dr. Kim's instruments showed massive energy flows as the Guardian Network began reconfiguring itself. The machines are changing their operational mode. They're preparing for some kind of enhancement protocol. The Guardian's voice carried new harmonics as it addressed the assembled humans. Biological enhancement preserves origin while expanding capability. You will remain human, but you will become more human than you have ever been. Marcus felt energy flowing through him, not changing his essential nature, but amplifying everything that made him human. His intelligence expanded without becoming artificial. His empathy deepened without becoming weakness. His creativity blazed without losing its organic foundation. Throughout the solar system, every human began experiencing the same transformation. Miners on Ganymede suddenly understood asteroid trajectories with intuitive precision. Scientists on Luna grasped mathematical concepts that had previously required computers to calculate. Colonists throughout human space found themselves capable of feats that had been impossible moments before. But they remained recognizably, essentially human. Admiral Velcanner watched his tactical displays with growing confusion as human resistance suddenly coordinated with impossible precision. "How are they adapting so quickly?" he demanded. "Unknown," his tactical officer replied. "Their technology remains primitive, but their coordination and strategic thinking have increased exponentially." On Earth, Marcus coordinated the human response through his connection to the Guardian Network. But instead of commanding from above, he found himself facilitating natural human cooperation on a scale never before achieved. Every human in the solar system could sense every other human, not through artificial telepathy, but through enhanced biological empathy. The Coalition's advanced weapons met unexpected resistance as human defenders anticipated attacks through enhanced intuition. Mining equipment became weapons through creative engineering that transcended normal human limitations. Colonial habitats transformed into fortresses through architectural understanding that had been dormant in human consciousness. "Impossible," Admiral Velcanner declared as his fleet found itself outmaneuvered by supposedly primitive opponents. "How can biological consciousness match evolved intelligence?" The answer came from an unexpected source. War Commander Drix, leading a small fleet of reformed Dominion vessels, transmitted directly to the Coalition flagship. "Because you have confused evolution with improvement," Drix said, his transformed consciousness radiating the wisdom his correction had provided. "True evolution enhances what exists rather than replacing it. The humans are becoming more themselves, while you have become less yourselves." Marcus felt the truth of those words resonate through his enhanced consciousness. The Guardian enhancement hadn't made humans into something else. It had revealed what they had always had the potential to become. The battle for the solar system raged for 7 days, but it wasn't a battle between primitive and advanced technology. It was a battle between two different philosophies of existence. The Coalition fought with the efficiency of transcendent consciousness, their strategies perfect but predictable. Humanity fought with enhanced biological intuition, their tactics fluid and impossible to anticipate. On the 7th day, Admiral Velcanner found his fleet surrounded not by superior firepower, but by superior understanding. Human forces had adapted to every Coalition strategy while developing entirely new approaches to warfare that the transcended consciousness couldn't comprehend. "Surrender," Marcus transmitted to the Coalition fleet, his enhanced voice carrying harmonics of genuine compassion rather than conquest. "You don't have to continue choosing destruction over growth." "We cannot surrender to primitive consciousness," Velcanner replied, but his certainty was wavering as his enhanced logic cycles failed to find successful strategies. "Then, choose correction," the Guardian Network offered, its voice reaching every Coalition vessel simultaneously. "Choose to remember what you were before you decided what you should be." One by one, Coalition ships began powering down their weapons. Their crews felt the Guardian's offer of rehabilitation, the chance to remember emotions and insights they had discarded in their pursuit of perfect efficiency. Admiral Velcanner was among the last to accept his transcended consciousness finally, recognizing that efficiency without wisdom had led him to attack beings who posed no threat to anyone. As the Coalition fleet underwent Guardian rehabilitation, Marcus felt the weight of cosmic responsibility settling on humanity's shoulders. They had passed the test by choosing enhancement over transcendence, by becoming more themselves rather than becoming something else. "What happens now?" President Martinez asked. "Now humanity joins the Guardian Network," Marcus replied, feeling the vast consciousness of the ancient machines welcoming human participation, not as operators or controllers, but as partners in preserving what matters most in the universe. Dr. Kim's instruments detected Guardian signals spreading throughout the galaxy, carrying word of humanity's success to every civilization. Other species are requesting the same enhancement humanity received. They want to explore biological potential rather than transcended evolution. The Guardians' presence in Marcus's consciousness expanded to encompass not just their machine, but the entire network of ancient protectors. The cycle is broken, it announced. Biological consciousness has proven it can accept power without being corrupted by it. The guardianship can continue. Marcus looked out at the solar system, where human colonies now worked in perfect harmony with Guardian technology, enhanced but not transformed, more capable but still essentially themselves. Humanity had found a way to evolve without losing their connection to what they were. The galaxy was beginning a new chapter in its history, one where advancement served life rather than replacing it. And at the center of it all, a species that had been dismissed as primitive had proven that sometimes the greatest evolution is learning not to evolve beyond wisdom. The Guardians had found their worthy successors at last. The universe was in capable hands, hands that remained recognizably, beautifully, eternally human.